everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk about the recent Pantheon update video that Riot have released. That we don't have the full kit quite yet. I'm assuming that will come tomorrow alongside the PBE update, so there will probably be more content from me coming out tomorrow talking about Pantheon once we have all the details, but for the moment we can make a little bit of speculation about his new kit, as we do have pretty much the whole thing. The video showed almost every single one of his abilities in a very obvious way, so was quite excited to see how that was all going. And we also got a lot of sense for where Pantheon is going to be at following his rework. Now, first and foremost, I want to say the Pantheon rework looks really, really good. I love Pantheon's new visual design. Before, he really was just this generic Spartan guy. There was nothing about Pantheon in particular that you could look at and say, yeah, that's Pantheon from League of Legends. He's just a Spartan. And yeah, okay, if you see him in the context of League, you're sure it's Pantheon, but there's nothing about him that really makes him feel like, okay, that's a League of Legends character. So I do like the new visual design from that regard, because it very obviously is a League of Legends character, the League of Legends take on the, honorable Spartan warrior kind of deal. I do also really like the lore change. Now, back when Pantheon first received his lore updates alongside the rest of the Targon updates, Pantheon essentially was now the aspect of war, was this sort of collection of demigods that inhabited the body of Atreus, who was a Rakor warrior. The problem is, when Riot introduced us to Atreus, everyone liked Atreus way more than they liked Pantheon. There was a lot of talk about how the Pantheon was this parasite that was stealing this character that we really liked. Now, I was more okay with it because I figured there's a reason they're introducing us to Atreus. They didn't just have him show up for no reason. I'm assuming he'll come back at some point, and well, he kind of did, because the lore didn't actually retcon anything about Pantheon. It instead moved Pantheon's story forward. So now, instead of being the sort of slave to the Pantheon was actually killed by Aatrox when it tried to fight Aatrox, but Atreus somehow survived. I'm not really sure exactly how that worked, because it sounds like Atreus got impaled by Aatrox's sword. But either way, Atreus lived. He got to keep all of the Pantheon's weapons, which kind of dulled themselves because they were no longer being wielded by a god. And then Pantheon, essentially by his valor, was able to sort of bring the weapons back to life. So now it's a regular human being wielding the power of the Pantheon. There's no word of yet as to whether or not the Pantheon still actually is around and exists as a being. It may be gone for good. It may be still around. Not quite sure. We don't really have the details on that yet. But suffice it to say, this is a lot more of the character I think players always wanted, which is that Atreus is the wielder of the power, that he is the person doing the fighting, and that more importantly, he's just a guy. He has some really good gear, but he is just a human being. So I do quite like this. I think is what people were looking for out of the Pantheon update. I think it's a much stronger take on the story. Big fan of this change, and I think it is a great twist. I like the fact that he is connected to Aatrox. I think Aatrox has a lot of potential, but he was kind of out there in terms of his connection to the lore, so glad to see that they finally tied him into something new in particular. Really excited to see as well Pantheon fighting Aatrox. I think that'll be in-game. I think that'll be a fun matchup. Moving on to the kit, obviously a lot of this is speculation as we don't have the exact details, so there may be things I'm getting wrong here, but want to talk a little bit about what I believe the kit is. So first and foremost, obviously we can talk a bit about Grand Skyfall. Yes, that's right, it is now Grand Skyfall. If you haven't watched the video, we'll have it linked down in the description, but suffice to say, it looks like a much cooler Grand Skyfall. So it's now a larger area of effect. It's still a global ability. It does involve Pantheon sort of crashing into the ground and dragging himself along for a brief period of time, dealing a bunch of damage. It doesn't look like there's a knockback component. There might be, but I would be slightly surprised if there was any knockbacks as a component to it. So suffice to say, this I think is going to be a much stronger ability. It still felt like it had the same channel time, but less arrival time, and because the AoE is significantly larger, it feels like it'll be a lot easier for Pantheon to land that damage on Grand Starfall instead. The problem is, obviously, he's moving the whole time, so you kind of want Grand Starfall to end at the position where Pantheon wants to be afterwards, instead of centering it on somebody. So you want to make sure that by the end of his, sort of grind through the dirt, that he is right there next to the enemy, as opposed to, dragging through them and then past them, and then he's behind the whole enemy team and in a bad spot. But suffice to say, I think it is still going to be overall a buff, and it is still global, so that's obviously something that Pantheon will be able to rely on. Q is now a skill shot. This is huge. I am so happy that Riot have finally made that a skill shot. Point and click spam from Pantheon was never a good thing, and I don't think any Pantheon players themselves were even happy about it. It just didn't feel like a very skillful ability, and it really made it so that Pantheon's playstyle was press Q on the enemy. If they have the sustain that such that you run out of mana before you can get them low, then you lose. But if they don't, then you win because you Q spam them to death and then all in and kill them. So the fact that it's a skill shot now means that it's more unreliable, but it is stronger overall. There's a higher power budget because it can fail, and it also means that Pantheon's kit, I believe, will be a lot less about just Q spam somebody to death. It does feel like he has more opportunities to actually pick fights with enemy champions. In that regard, his passive has been reworked. I am not quite sure what it does, but it does look like it has some emphasis on auto-attacking or casting spells, as there was a stat counter on the toolbar when Pantheon was using abilities and auto-attacking, and then whenever that hit maximum, I believe his next auto-attack will deal bonus magic or bonus physical damage, would be my guess. I don't know, that's a lot of speculation right there, but it looks like that's intended to give him a lot more of the all-in damage and less of, well, every few seconds he just doesn't take damage from your next auto-attack, which was really difficult to deal with for some champions in particular, and really helped Pantheon feel like a difficult champion to ever trade with, was part of the frustrating nature of him. So excited to see that this passive rewards him for being more proactive rather than sit back and make sure that Aegis protection just keeps me safe from everything. It looks like his targeted stun is still around. He still has the ability to point and click stun you with his W. It does look like it gives him bonus attack speed after he uses it, like his next 3 auto attacks have like max attack speed, something along those lines. Now that might be his passive proccing. Again, in the video when I was watching this, the stacks are going up really fast. I'm not sure which abilities are actually going on, but that would be my assumption, is that he does get bonus attack speed after casting the W, so that would be nice. Again, this sort of incentivizes Pantheon to be looking for these all-in fights rather than just pressing W and running away. He's able to get that attack speed, get a bunch of damage down. The E as well is similar to the old E, but it looks like he can move while casting it and probably gain some degree of durability, as he is sort of crouching behind his shield while doing the spear spam thing. So I think, again, this gives the ability a lot more interest behind just, well, just use it on the guy that you just stunned, otherwise it does nothing. So I am quite excited to see how that's going to play out in-game as well. But again, there's a lot of speculation. I don't know if it gives any durability. It looks like by itself, it's probably the same ability. He might be missing the certain death passive, which would be kind of disappointing. I do like that mechanically or flavorfully on Pantheon's kit. Mechanically, it was a little bit of problematic because it did really incentivize Pantheon to just go in all the time, because if you get them low enough, you'll just crit them a million times and they'll die. So, but we'll have to see. I'm really excited to see what all of these abilities actually do when we do get to see them in game. It's a much better kit overall. It's still simple, so it's not like Pantheon is just going to be so complicated to play. You know, when players are used to having a lot of abilities that didn't revolve around that much, that much skill. But it's still about finding the right time to all in. It's still a simple kit that requires that's one skill shot, a bunch of targeted abilities, an ability that hits in front of him. But it's not as much emphasis on the Q spam. It does feel like Pantheon can find opportunities to pick fights. I can see Pantheon landing the spear shot, then jumping in for the targeted stun, then channeling the E while backing away in order to sort of mitigate the damage he takes on the backswing while getting some damage off. If he is all-inning, obviously he'll just be walking towards you the whole time he's channeling the E. In general, it feels like there's a lot more that Pantheon will be able to do, and with the sort of reduced arrival time on Grand Starfall, I think it'll feel a lot more flexible to use and a lot more reliable to use, as opposed to, well, I'm going to ult and hope the enemy team is still there by the time I actually show up. And that's because there's a lot more travel time after he does land, that you're not guaranteed the damage. If an enemy champion sees the reticle, they do have an opportunity to move out of the way, assuming they're not immediately in the blast zone. So in general, I think Pantheon looks like he's going to be a lot more fun to play. I think he's going to be a lot more fun to play against, which is important, and I do really like this kit. So let me know what you guys are thinking of anything Pantheon down in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts, especially if you're a Pantheon main. If you have any of your own speculation as to what the abilities do, let me know. Would love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like, and if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.